A couple of weeks ago, I visited the Highwayman Distillery, and while I was there, I had the opportunity to try the Highwayman AOB Collaboration, Dieman's Rising, and it was so good, I took home a bottle of the 001. So today, I'm going to be revisiting and reviewing this. Hey guys, I'm Nath Martyn, the Whisky Scribe. I'm a whisky enthusiast and I love all things whisky. Now, taste is subjective and there's a lot of whiskies out there and a lot of different ways to enjoy them. So whether you're a whisky connoisseur or you just want to learn a little bit more about whisky, let's explore it together. If you'd like to see more from me, please consider subscribing. I put up new videos every week. You can also follow me over on Instagram. Now, it was a fantastic experience to visit a micro distillery like Highwayman. We got to try a bunch of different whiskies. We learned from Dan Woolley a lot of what goes into how he makes his whiskey. And we even were able to try some of the new make as it was coming fresh off the still. Now, I've already posted a video of the distillery tour, which you can see for yourself, but I will say that the distillery is definitely well worth a visit. Yeah, I had a really good time. I even bought a shirt. Among the new releases we were able to try were the Dieman's Rising, the 001 and the 002. Now, this was a collaboration between Highwayman and AOB. So in 2016, AOB had 6,000 litres of new make commissioned for them. And they took that whiskey and they divided up amongst 4 different barrels. So that was bourbon cask, Pinot Noir, Apera, which is like a type of sherry, and Tawny. So while the AOB whiskey was aging away, Dan Woolley purchased the still. And he had it retrofitted with a heating element because it used to be a fire still, and he started making his own whiskey. And some of what he made was a peated whiskey that he put into a pair of wine casks for 2 years. So going back to AOB, they took these 4 caskings, vatted them together, and they transferred them all over to Botrytis casks, which is a type of dessert wine. So finally then, they took the Botrytis casks and the Highwayman Apera casks, vatted all that together, and then divided that into 3 equal portions. 1 went into mead casks, 1 went into rum casks, and 1 went into maple syrup casks. Stay with me, we're almost up to this part. So the mead and the rum casks were all vatted together to make the 001 release, this one. And then the maple syrup cask was just bottled as the 002 release. I think I got there.
I think you did.
Now, if you're still with me, that was a hell of a journey, and that's actually where the name of the whiskey comes from. Now, you may have noticed the spelling, Dieman's Rising, D-I-E-M-A-N-S. It's actually named after the original name for Tasmania, Van Diemen's Land, because this whole process started with a still that was down in Tasmania. The first batch was made in Tasmania, and then everything has moved north ever since, finally ending up at the Highwayman Distillery in Byron Bay. So it was Dieman's Rising. Finally, we can get to the whiskey. So just on appearance, you can see, look at the color in that. There's 7 different casks that have gone into that, so I don't think they've had to add any artificial coloring. It's very rare you'll see a whiskey this dark. Yeah, and honestly, with the amount of different casks that this whiskey has been in, I don't doubt that that is actually from all the wood. In terms of the legs, they're pretty slow moving. There's a lot of, I would say there's a lot of oil in this whiskey. I know Dan's whiskey isn't chill filtered. I'm not sure about AOB, but I would assume it isn't either. And I've probably mentioned chill filtration a little bit. What chill filtering is, it's a process where when making the whiskey, they use like a cold filtration system to sort of pull some of the fats and oils out. And the reason why some distilleries started doing this was if you add ice to a whiskey that's got a high oil content, it makes the whiskey look cloudy. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't look good aesthetically. So they created chill filtration so that when people have whiskey on the rocks, the whiskey still looks nice and crisp and clear. There's been a movement away from chill filtration, just simply because those fats and oils, they do actually contain some of the flavor. So that's why a lot of whiskey distilleries will advertise that their whiskey is non-chill filtered, because they're basically saying that we don't take away any of the flavor. And one of the ways you can often tell that something isn't chill filtered is sort of the thicker and slower moving those legs that are moving down the glass are. That's a sign that it does have those natural oils still in there. On the nose, now I'm remembering that this is cask strength, it's 57.8%. So I'm gonna take a little bit of air in my mouth so I don't blow out my sinuses. This does have a beautiful nose. You've got there's like a maple wood in there. Some real fruity sort of vanilla. And there's a background sweetness that's kind of like, do you remember those candy musk sticks that you used to get? If you don't like musk sticks, you probably won't like this whiskey. Oh no, I'll have to drink it all myself. Now, to the palate. It's been 3 weeks since I've had this, and that still caught me a little bit by surprise. There is so much flavor in here. I think probably one of the first things that hits you is like these dried fruits. It's kind of like a combination of dried fruit and candied spice. And it's dry in the main part of your mouth, and then it sort of moves into like a little bit of this bold, sort of sharp sweetness at the back. Sort of like a bit of a burnt caramel flavor in there as well. And it lingers on the palate. Like that malty sweetness, that's still there. It's only just starting to fade now. Like that is really sticking around. And again, part of that is those natural oils do help to keep the flavors remaining on the palate. That sort of that dryness, it's kind of like when you have a dry red wine. There is so much to this whiskey. It's really enjoyable. Definitely glad I bought this one. So that's the 001. Now, while we were at the distillery, we did also get to try the 002, even though it was actually still a couple of days before it got released. And one thing Dan said about these whiskies is that his favorite out of the two, it keeps changing week on week. So 1 week it's the 001, 1 week it's the 002, and then it'll change back. And I have to say, I was on the fence too, because I really enjoyed them both, and it came down to a hair finish. So the Dieman's Rising 002, the only difference between it and the 001 is that final casking was in maple syrup casks instead of a combination of mead and rum. So the colour was very much the same as the 001. Honestly, it looked just like that. On appearance, the difference was those legs were a lot thicker and slower moving because you've had all those sugars in there from the maple syrup casks. So the nose was very well balanced, and it brought in some of that maple sweetness, which was really, really nice. And it sort of combined that with some more earthy notes. There was a little bit of this astringent bitterness at the back of the throat. You'll often hear people drinking whiskey talk about astringent, and because astringent kind of means bitter, it's seen as a bad thing. And if a whiskey just tastes astringent, yes, that's a bad thing. But if it's really nicely balanced with something else, with a contrasting flavor, that can be fantastic. So the 002 had that maple sweetness in the main body. And then it was that astringent bitterness was just a little bit at the tail end, just to sort of break that up, which worked really, really well. It did make it hard to choose between the two whiskies. Given how on the fence I was about these two different whiskies, if you have the opportunity to get both, I'd say do it, and then just keep going back between the two of them and see which one's your favorite week on week. So that's my take on the Dieman's Rising releases. By now, I've actually had a few different Highwayman whiskies, and I absolutely love them and always looking forward to the next release. I haven't actually tried anything from AOB yet, so that might be the next step. If you have tried any of those AOB releases, I'd love to hear about it, so please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And for now, enjoy what's in your glass and slange. That is just really bold.